Hello everybody. Today I would like to discuss with you some issues that are important to remember when police officers, firefighters and other interveners arrive at the scene of completed suicide. As far as they are the first to arrive, they ought to establish the contact with the family or close ones of the deceased. This first contact plays a crucial role in ensuring the possibility of help for survivors. Good contact may open the door for further support and encourage to use it. On the other hand, when helpers arriving on site, they have lots of their own responsibilities and duties, and sometimes they simply forget to take care of survivors. Therefore, let me to remind you some do's and don'ts in such situations. First, do not forget to introduce yourself when meeting the survivors for the first time. This is simple but important point trying to make a contact. And respect the privacy of people living at the place where suicide had happened. Behave as a polite guest. It will help the survivors to start regaining the control of the situation. And it's also very important to talk shortly with them before doing something. Explain what you are planning to do, then try to prevent others from looking at the site. Kindly suggest close ones to wait in the next room until you finish the procedures and promise to invite them back when it is finished. Remember that it is especially important to do everything possible to prevent children from participation on scene. Always keep in mind that everything you do or say on scene will be catched and noticed by close ones. Be responsible of what you are doing or saying, and respect the human dignity of the deceased. Do not talk about him or her in familiar manner. It is better to use person's name instead of he or she when talking, because it humanizes the victim. The use of decedent's name will be comforting for family members as well. And never forget about the importance of to act with the victim's body gently and respectfully. Research shows that indifferent and insensitive, risky behavior with the body is especially traumatizing and leads to prolonged and complicated survivor's grief reactions. Another important aspect to remember is not to leave survivors unattended until you are working on site. It can be dangerous. Do not forget that exposure to suicide can be contagious. It may increase the likelihood of considering suicide as an option among survivors as well. Especially be careful with the children, because young people are particularly susceptible for it. Take care of them or ask your colleagues to support them until you are working on field. Avoid to increase the likelihood of suicide contagion by presenting simplistic explanations of suicide reasons. Remember that suicide is never the result of a single factor or event. It is almost always have multiple causes and results from complex interactions. And when talking, avoid glorifying suicide by presenting it as a solution in a victim situation. From the very beginning, try to prevent risk of contagion by separating person from his action. Speak about the deceased with all your respect, but show that suicide was not the right choice. And do not forget that suicide is a highly traumatic experience for close ones. Therefore, do everything possible to provide them with adequate care and support from the very beginning. The most important and helpful thing you can do as a helper is to listen. Listen actively, without judgment, criticism, or prejudice. Sometimes you may not know what to say, and that's okay. Unconditional listening and empathy is what is mostly needed for the survivors. And do not forget to ask the close ones if and how you can help, and do what was promised. Care and human concern in such situations is really very important. Even during the first contact, do everything possible to lessen stigmatization and guilt. Close ones may feel guilty for not having been able to recognize suicide risk or to help the victim. Say that it's very common to feel guilty after suicide, but this is not their fault. None of us ever really know what would have happened if we did this or that. And it's also very important to remember that under the shock, survivors cannot be ready to accept support and psychological help. But it doesn't mean that they do not need it. Therefore, it's always useful to have and to leave written information about the possibilities of help and encourage to use it later. And for closing, always remember that confidentiality is crucial in such situations. Never share personal information and details about situation with anybody else except actively involved team members. Good luck in your very important work.